This is the Adidas Tour 360, and it's Adidas's top-of-the-line tour-level golf shoe worn by the likes of Dustin and Xander Schauffele. This shoe is meant to compete with the very best offerings from other golf shoe brands like Nike, FootJoy, and Puma. Today, I'm going to show you some of the unique features of this shoe, put it through a series of performance tests, and finally, I'm going to give it a score to see how it ranks against other top-performing golf shoes. Let's start with the bottom of the shoe, or the outsole. This shoe has a blue TPU fairly hard outsole and white spikes. And something interesting about this design is that although these white spikes look like traditional removable spikes, they're actually fixed in place on this shoe. So let's compare that to the Nike Air Zoom Victory Tour 2, which is Nike's current top-of-the-line tour-level shoe. And if we look at the bottom of this shoe, you'll see that the TPU outsole essentially has no additional spikes integrated into this TPU outsole and only has removable spikes. And then let's contrast that with Nike's 270G, which has just heavy lugs, so no removable spikes at all, heavy lugs that provide traction. So this is a traditional spikeless shoe. This is a standard spiked shoe, and this shoe kind of sits in between both of those. There are pros and cons of this design. Let's start with the pros of this design. And the pros, like most spikeless shoes, comes back to comfort. And the reason that comfort is associated with a spikeless design is that you can essentially make this sole a little bit less rigid than a traditional spiked shoe. And also the outsole is going to take up less space in the shoe as well. So when you have a spiked shoe, you have to house the part that this spike screws into, which ends up kind of pushing into the shoe itself and limits the amount of foam that you can put in the shoe without raising the shoe height too high. So when you remove the whole structure of how this spike screws in, it gives you more flexibility in how you put foam and how you design the outsole in general. Let's move from the outsole to the midsole of the shoe, and that's where this shoe really sets itself apart because it uses Adidas's proprietary Boost foam. And while you probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about what type of foam is in your shoes, let alone what type of foam is in your golf shoes, it is an underrated part of the comfort and durability and performance for athletic shoes and golf shoes. And this Boost foam has been one of the best foams that you can use in athletic shoes for the last decade or so. I've never had a pair of shoes that has Boost foam, so I'm really looking forward to trying these on. People absolutely swear by Boost foam as being the most comfortable foam that you can possibly have in a shoe. Let's move from the midsole to the upper. This shoe is a leather constructed shoe that is meant to be waterproof. And the style of this shoe is a fairly traditional athletic looking shoe with some techie features built in. So I think this shoe just rides a really nice middle ground of not being too techie, not being too loud, but also not being too boring as well. So let's take a look at some of the individual parts of this upper. First, let's look at the front of the toe box and specifically how this TPU outsole wraps up a little bit higher onto the toe box. This is going to protect against scrapes and scuffs, a problem that I've had with other leather shoes that don't have this protection. I really like the design of the toe box on this shoe. It maintains a sleek, athletic appearance and also gives enough room for your foot to move around naturally and avoids the bulbous toe shape that golf shoes can sometimes have. Moving from the toe box to the quarter, Adidas has their 3-stripe design, which has been created by using these blue TPU pieces that are separate from the leather of the shoe. And these pieces wrap around the shoe to the other side and create what Adidas calls their Tour 360 design, meant to provide more support. Let's move on to the collar of the shoe, and this is a really well constructed collar. This has a little bit of foam here, and then it also is leather lined, and that is the mark of a nice shoe, is to have leather lined collar and leather lined heel. So this is going to be very durable and will be very comfortable as well. So it'll end up breaking into each user's individual foot and heel shape, and also will typically outlast a fabric lined collar and heel. I'm sure you've had a pair of shoes that the part that ended up wearing out fastest was right back here where your Achilles hits, and you end up wearing through whatever fabric is there and ultimately wearing through the foam, maybe having plastic or whatever other pieces kind of poking into you. So this is a really nice part of this shoe, and I'm really happy to see this in a top of the line, fairly expensive shoe. Moving on to the inside of the shoe, you can see that the insole has the word Boost written on it, and although I don't think that this insole has Boost itself, I think this is really just highlighting that the midsole is Boost on this shoe. The insole is fairly soft and seems to be nicely made. And if you look deeper into the shoe, you can see that the tongue is attached by elastic pieces on both sides. And that's going to keep the tongue in place and also provide a little bit more structure and support. A couple of other things to note about the design of this shoe are the Adidas logo on the back and the gray plastic TPU coming up on this side of the shoe, and then also gray plastic TPU coming up right here as well. And another feature that I really like about this shoe is this kind of chrome looking eyelet right here. A really nice feature, really elevates the design of this shoe and feels durable, looks great, and I think really just refines this shoe and makes it look like it's worth the nearly $200 that this shoe goes for. Now it's time to try these shoes on and see if this Boost foam is really as good as it is hyped up to be. Okay, I get what people are talking about now. These might be the softest shoes I've worn, let alone the softest pair of golf shoes I've ever worn. But they also don't feel too cushy as well. They feel very soft, yet you can also feel that they rebound quickly as well. Very impressed. I get what people are raving about for Boost foam. Curious to see if these shoes will feel the same after several rounds of golf, but initial impression is that I'm very, very impressed by the comfort of this shoe right out of the box, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna need much of a break-in either. And here we have it styled with a pair of navy pants from Lululemon and a gray polo from Lululemon. Now it's time to put the Adidas Tour 360 through some performance tests. Next, we're going to test the hardness of the TPU outsole. Typically, a harder outsole is going to be associated with a little bit more durability. That's not always the case, but it's a good rule of thumb. We're going to use a short A durometer to test the hardness of the outsole. Basically, what this durometer does is it pushes this metal rod into the bottom of the shoe, and it's going to give us a reading. So let's see what the Adidas Tour 360 TPU outsole reads on the short A durometer. So we press it in. And it reads at an 82.5 short A. Let's compare that with the Nike Air Zoom Victory Tour 2, which has an 89 short A. And finally, let's test the hardness of the 270G outsole. And we get a reading of 71. So the hardness of the outsole of the Tour 360 sits in between the slightly harder Nike Air Zoom Victory Tour 2 and the quite a bit softer Nike 270G. Another note about hardness is typically A softer sole is going to be a little bit more grippy, but again, the softer it is, the more it is going to be prone to wearing away. So this shoe is kind of sitting in between. Again, it's going to have a relatively hard outsole, but not quite as hard as the Air Zoom Victory Tour 2, meaning you're going to get a little bit more grippiness out of this outsole, yet it's going to have a little bit more durability than, say, the very soft 270G. Let's move on to the midsole and test the hardness or softness of the midsole of the Adidas Tour 360, which uses the Boost foam. This is a super soft foam, and we're going to use a Shore C durometer, which is slightly different than the Shore A that we used for the outsole. So using a Shore C durometer, we get about a 25 Shore C, and if we compare that to the midsole material, which is using Nike React on the Air Zoom Victory Tour 2, we get a 40 Shore C. And if we were to compare that to the 4-foot foam on the 270G, that comes in at a 51. So the Boost foam in the Adidas Tour 360 is much, much softer than the foams found in either one of the Nike golf shoes. And something that's supposed to be unique about this Boost foam is that it's supposed to have quite a long life, actually. So even though it is very soft, it's supposed to maintain its resilience over a long period of time. No one likes wet feet on a golf course, so let's see how waterproof the Adidas Tour 360 is. To test how waterproof the shoe is, we're going to use a sheet of cobalt chloride paper. And this paper will turn white when it comes in contact with moisture. So we'll take a shoe form and we'll wrap this paper around the shoe form, insert it into the shoe, and we'll leave the shoe submerged in water for 5 minutes and see how much moisture makes its way into the shoe. So we're going to use a sheet of cobalt chloride paper, wrap it around a shoe form, and put it inside. Now time to submerge, making sure not to get any water inside of the shoe. And we'll let 5 minutes go by. And now removing from the water, making sure not to get any water inside the shoe, and wiping down the outside, pulling out the shoe form and the cobalt chloride paper, which is all blue, no pink or white spots. And this is what it would look like if water had gotten in. You'd see these pink and white spots show up. So super waterproof, no spots. Moving on to the grip test, we're going to use a long artificial turf to start off with, moving up in angles all the way to 45. Now moving on to the short turf, same test, moving it up to a 45-degree angle, and we actually start to get some slippage here. And test it again, took another step and another slip. The Adidas Tour 360 weighs 1 pound 3.4 ounces, the Air Zoom Victory Tour 2 is 1 pound 2.5 ounces, and the 270G is 1 pound 2.4 ounces. After running this shoe through several tests, I have to say I'm very impressed, particularly with the waterproof test. I've run that waterproof test on several other golf shoes, and a lot of times you'll see water start to make its way into the shoe right in this area, and not a single drop of water appeared to make its way into the shoe during that test. So very impressed with the waterproof on this shoe. Performed pretty well on the grip test as well. We did start to see some slippage at the 45-degree angle on the short grass. I did not expect that, so I'm not quite sure what was causing that slippage, because compared to other shoes that I've tested, I've seen better traction on that 45-degree on the short grass. So a little bit surprised that it didn't hold at that angle on the short grass. So, however, still performed well on the rough grass, did well all the way through up to 45 degrees. And so comfort level right out of the box, really nice. Feel great on the feet, fit really well, nice and snug, but not too snug fit. So really looking forward to getting this shoe out on the golf course. And stepping on the tee box of a 510-yard par 5, and the Adidas Tour 360 feels great, feels super solid and secure, and felt great through the swing. We're left with 240 yards in and a very windy, damp and muddy day, so really put these shoes through their paces. and try to put a good swing on this, and it was okay. Left myself about 40 yards and a satisfactory pitch. You can really see the wind whipping at the flag. And even in the putting stance, these shoes feel really good. Sometimes shoes can have too much of a heel and kind of push you forward. These shoes felt like they have the right amount of drop and again, just feel really solid, stable, and comfortable. And made the putt to the par. Just finished up a very muddy practice round, so I'm gonna clean these up and I'll give you my final thoughts on the Adidas Tour 360, and then after that, I'm gonna give it a score based on style, performance, and comfort. Let's go ahead and give this a score and see how it stacks up to other top performing golf shoes. Starting with style. So I'm gonna give this shoe a 7 out of 10. It's not gonna win any design awards. It's not pushing into new territory for golf shoe design, but it's also not going to offend anybody either. And it's not really gonna turn anybody off. It's just a pretty standard athletic shoe design. It's versatile, it's gonna look good in shorts, it's gonna look good in pants, it's gonna look good with a variety of different clothing colors. The only thing that people might not like about the style of this shoe would be this big chunk of boost foam in the heel, especially considering that the boost foam midsole, the functional part of it, probably stops right about here. And the rest of this is just to highlight the use of boost foam in this shoe. So nothing really functional about this top part of the boost foam wrapping up around the heel section. Something I do like about the style is the use of these kind of chrome accent pieces in the eyelets. So just a solid, decent looking shoe. Moving on to performance. I'm giving this shoe a 9 out of 10. And I did amazingly well in the waterproof test, did well on the grip incline test. However, it did slip with the short turf at the 45-degree angle. I'm not reading too much into that. I'm not sure why it did that, because other shoes that I have tested on that same angle do grip at that angle. So not sure what caused that, but not gonna read too much into that. On course performance today, these did really well. Traction was amazing, even considering the wet, muddy conditions. And the only reason that I'm really giving this a 9 instead of a 10 is due to Adidas's use of a non-replaceable spike. And that goes back again to this idea that if something happens to these spikes and if these start to wear down, eventually the performance of the shoe is going to decrease. So this shoe could have been a 10 out of 10 if these were replaceable spikes. Now let's talk about comfort. So when I first put these shoes on, I thought 10 out of 10. And one of the most comfortable pairs of shoes I've ever put on right out of the box. Definitely the most comfortable golf shoe that I've ever put on right out of the box. So it started off as a 10 out of 10, had a nice snug fit, but still didn't feel constricting on the foot. Toe box felt like it was the right shape, not too much room, but also not squeezed too tight. Just felt great right out of the box. And even just kind of walking around a little bit before I went to the course, I thought, okay, most comfortable shoe ever, 10 out of 10. However, I did start to get a little bit of rubbing, and actually more than a little bit. I got a lot of rubbing in the heel section to the point that it was very painful by the end of the round. And I'm really disappointed by that. And I had read other reviews of people reporting that as well, and I kind of like discounted it because, I expected that it was gonna be comfortable. Again, the use of leather in the heel is pretty standard for really nice footwear. So I thought that this was going to just kind of break in really, really quick. The heel is fairly flexible as well, but I got a lot of rubbing like right on this sort of like maybe halfway up the heel, and was just excruciating by the end of the round. And so this shoe going from a 10 out of 10, moving down to, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10, but honestly, I was even thinking about giving it a 7 out of 10. And I'm wondering if I'm gonna put these back on to wear them again, just because, and also I didn't walk the round today. So it was car paths only. So I did a decent amount of walking between the cart and my ball. But if I had tried to walk the round today, I couldn't have made it. I wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's definitely going to be a risk. If I go to put these shoes on again for my next round, I just have to kind of cross my fingers that they've broken in enough that they're not going to cause that same problem again. So kind of disappointing. And like I said, this is kind of a known thing. Reading some reviews from other people have reported that. So I don't know if maybe it's the shape of the heel, or maybe just something about the softness of the leather, or maybe just not quite enough padding around this sort of midway up the heel. But again, pretty disappointed. Thought I was going to be a 10 out of 10, but I'm kind of graciously going to give it an 8 out of 10. That brings the total score to a 24, placing it in a 4-way tie for the 3rd best performing golf shoe that I've reviewed. This is a good golf shoe. I really wish that I had not experienced that heel rubbing issue. I thought for sure this was going to be my new gamer, my new go-to golf shoe. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm going to wear it again. I'm not sure if it's going to make it into the rotation again, because I don't want to risk feeling that heel pain again when I have a bunch of other shoes to wear. So granted, it might have broken in a little bit more. It might be totally fine next time I wear these shoes, but I'm not sure that I want to risk it. However, if these fit you well, if you test them a decent amount, and you don't experience that issue, this could be the best golf shoe that you've ever had. I hope you enjoyed that review, and let me know in the comments if there's a golf shoe that you'd like me to review. Don't forget to check out the rest of the videos on my channel and subscribe to stay up to date for all upcoming golf shoe reviews.